Antigua and Barbuda is a small twin-island country located in the eastern Caribbean Sea. Though small in size, its history is rich and complex, shaped by early indigenous peoples, European colonization, slavery, and the long struggle for independence. The story of Antigua and Barbuda is one of survival, resilience, and the pursuit of freedom by its people. Long before European explorers arrived, the islands of Antigua and Barbuda were home to several groups of indigenous peoples. The first known inhabitants were the Siboney, or Siboney, who arrived around 3100 BCE. They lived mainly by hunting and fishing, using stone tools and simple shelters. Their way of life was peaceful but basic, and they left behind stone artifacts that archaeologists have discovered today. Later, around 100 CE, the Arawak people came from the northern regions of South America. The Arawaks were more advanced farmers and potters. They introduced crops such as cassava, corn, sweet potatoes, and pineapples. They also made beautiful pottery and built organized villages along the coasts. The Arawaks called Antigua Wadadli, which means our own, and Barbuda Waomoni. Their culture was based on family life and cooperation, and they lived relatively peacefully for centuries. However, around 1100 CE, a new group known as the Caribs arrived. The Caribs were skilled warriors who came from the South American mainland. They often fought with the Arawaks and gradually took control of many Caribbean islands, including Antigua and Barbuda. The Caribs were known for their courage and seafaring abilities, but they also practiced raids and took captives. By the time Europeans arrived, the Caribs controlled the islands and fiercely resisted foreign intrusion. In 1493, Christopher Columbus sighted Antigua during his second voyage to the Americas. He named it Santa Maria la Antigua, after a church in Seville, Spain. However, the Spanish did not settle on the island. The Caribs were strong defenders of their land, and Antigua lacked fresh water sources and natural harbors, which made colonization difficult. For over a century after Columbus's visit, Antigua and Barbuda remained largely under the control of indigenous peoples, although they were occasionally visited by Spanish and later English and French sailors. In 1632, the English established their first permanent settlement on Antigua. The first settlers came mainly from St. Kitts, another British colony. The English faced great challenges at first. The Caribs resisted their arrival, and droughts made agriculture difficult. Despite this, the British settlers managed to survive and began planting tobacco, ginger, and cotton. Later, they discovered that sugarcane could grow very well in Antigua's climate and soil. This discovery changed the island's future completely. By the mid-17th century, sugar became the main crop, and the island's economy began to depend heavily on it. Sugarcane plantations were large and labor-intensive, and to work them, the British colonists brought thousands of enslaved Africans to Antigua and Barbuda. By the late 1600s, enslaved Africans had become the majority of the population, while the white plantation owners controlled the economy and government. Barbuda was settled later, around 1678, and was mainly used to supply food, livestock, and labor for the plantations on Antigua. The island was managed for many years by the Codrington family, wealthy planters who leased Barbuda from the British Crown. The people enslaved on Barbuda worked to raise cattle, grow crops, and produce salt for export. During the 18th century, Antigua became one of Britain's most important and profitable colonies in the Caribbean. The economy was based almost entirely on sugar production, and nearly all of the work was done by enslaved Africans. Life on the plantations was extremely harsh. Enslaved people were forced to work long hours in the hot sun, cutting and processing sugarcane. They suffered from poor living conditions, little food, and brutal punishment if they disobeyed. Despite these hardships, Enslaved Africans preserved elements of their African culture: music, dance, language, and religion, creating a new Afro-Caribbean identity that shaped the island's culture. They also resisted slavery in many ways, through work slowdowns, running away, or organizing revolts. Although no major rebellion succeeded, their determination for freedom never disappeared. The wealth produced by enslaved labor made Antigua one of the richest sugar colonies in the British Empire. However, this wealth benefited only a small number of British planters and merchants, while the majority of the population lived in poverty and bondage. The movement to end slavery in the British Empire began to grow stronger in the early 19th century. Religious groups, especially the Methodists, played a key role in promoting education and the idea that slavery was morally wrong. Many enslaved people attended church secretly, learning to read and finding hope in the message of equality before God. In 1834, slavery was officially abolished throughout the British Empire. What made Antigua unique was that its planters chose to grant immediate emancipation, instead of the apprenticeship system that other colonies used to keep people working for several more years. On August 1, 1834, about 30,000 people in Antigua were declared free. Barbuda's enslaved population also gained their freedom around the same time. Although freedom was achieved, life did not suddenly become easy. The newly freed people had little land or money, and most had to continue working on the plantations for very low wages. The British planters still controlled most of the land and political power. Nevertheless, emancipation was a turning point in the island's history, and the people began to build a new sense of identity and self-determination. After emancipation, the sugar industry continued to dominate Antigua's economy, but it gradually declined due to falling sugar prices, competition from other countries, and natural disasters such as hurricanes and droughts. The economic hardships pushed many Antiguans to migrate to other Caribbean islands, Britain, and the United States in search of better opportunities. Socially, education and religion played a growing role in shaping society. The churches helped establish schools and taught literacy to the children of freed people. These changes slowly created a more educated population that would later demand political and economic reform. Barbuda's development remained slow. The island had a smaller population and was still managed by the descendants of the Codrington family until the late 19th century. The people of Barbuda maintained a more communal lifestyle, sharing land and resources among themselves, which remains part of their culture today. In the early 20th century, economic difficulties and poor working conditions led to growing social unrest. Plantation workers and small farmers demanded better wages, improved living standards, and more political rights. The Great Depression of the 1930s made things worse, and protests spread across the Caribbean. In 1939, the Antigua Trades and Labor Union, ATLU, was founded to fight for workers' rights. It was led by Veer Cornwall Bird, who later became the most important political leader in the country's modern history. The ATLU not only improved wages and working conditions, but also became the foundation for political organization in Antigua and Barbuda. Over time, the labor movement evolved into a political party, the Antigua Labor Party, ALP. Under Bird's leadership, the ALP pushed for greater self-government and an end to colonial rule. In 1951, the first general election with universal adult voting rights was held, and the ALP won by a large majority. This marked the beginning of Antigua and Barbuda's journey toward independence. During the 1950s, Antigua and Barbuda joined the West Indies Federation, a short-lived political union of Caribbean islands seeking independence as one nation. The federation dissolved in 1962, but it inspired continued efforts toward self-rule. By 1967, Antigua and Barbuda became an associated state of Britain, meaning it was self-governing in most matters but still under British control in foreign affairs and defense. This was an important step toward full independence. After years of negotiation and preparation, Antigua and Barbuda became an independent nation on November 1, 1981. The country joined the Commonwealth of Nations, keeping the British monarch as the head of state, represented by a governor-general. V.C. Byrd became the first prime minister. Independence Day is now a national holiday celebrated every year with parades, music, and cultural events. The early years of independence were filled with hope and challenges. The government worked to develop tourism, which quickly replaced sugar as the main source of income. Antigua's beautiful beaches and warm climate attracted visitors from around the world. The country also developed light manufacturing, offshore banking, and education as key sectors of the economy. However, political life was dominated by the Byrd family for many decades. After V.C. Byrd retired, his son Lester Byrd became prime minister in 1994. While the Labour Party oversaw development projects and modernization, critics accused it of corruption and mismanagement. In 2004, the United Progressive Party, UPP, led by Baldwin Spencer, defeated the Labour Party, ending over 50 years of continuous Byrd family leadership. The new government focused on transparency, education, and improving infrastructure. However, the global financial crisis of 2008 affected the tourism industry and the wider economy. In 2014, the Antigua Labour Party returned to power under Gaston Brown, who remains Prime Minister today. His government has worked to attract foreign investment and rebuild Barbuda after Hurricane Irma struck in 2017, causing severe damage and forcing most of Barbuda's residents to evacuate to Antigua. Despite challenges such as climate change, limited natural resources, and economic dependency on tourism, Antigua and Barbuda continues to grow as a stable democracy. The country remains a member of regional organizations like the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, and the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, working closely with its neighbors to promote development and unity. Modern Antiguan and Barbudan culture reflects the blending of African, European, and indigenous influences. The people take pride in their history, music, and festivals, such as Carnival, which celebrates emancipation with colorful costumes, calypso music, and dancing. Cricket is the national sport and a major source of pride, producing world-class players like Sir Vivian Richards. Education, literacy, and access to healthcare have improved greatly since independence, and the country enjoys one of the higher standards of living in the Caribbean. The people of Antigua and Barbuda are known for their friendliness, creativity, and strong community spirit. The history of Antigua and Barbuda is a story of endurance and transformation. From the days of the Siboney and Arawaks, through the dark centuries of slavery and colonialism, to the triumph of independence, the island's people have always shown determination and resilience. Today, Antigua and Barbuda stands as a proud and independent nation, rooted in its past but looking toward a hopeful and prosperous future. The struggles and sacrifices of earlier generations laid the foundation for the freedom and progress the country enjoys today.